With us now, I want to bring in Congressman André Carson, Democrat from Indiana. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us.
What a pleasure.
Do you think
Thank
needs to? Absolutely. What do you think needs to happen? Does he need to step down?
Well, I echo the sentiment of my friend and colleague, Congressman Don McEacham, who is from Virginia. He knows better than I do. I think he served with then Senator Northern, and he mentioned in the press release his record as a senator. But this is very disturbing. I think many of us can claim youthful indiscretions. However, he was an adult. Given the legacy of the Ku Klux Klan, given the legacy, the hurtful legacy of blackface, he should have known better. I think he's still young enough to have known better. And I think in a very real sense, it speaks to the climate in which we live in, where you have white supremacists growing at an alarming rate. We're seeing hate crimes against Muslims, against African Americans, Latinos, members of the LGBTQ community. And I think these pictures are just a painful reminder that we have a long way to go in this country as it relates to race relations.
I want to listen real quickly to what Governor Northam said in his statement.
That photo and the racist and offensive attitudes it represents does not reflect that person I am today or the way that I have conducted myself as a soldier, a doctor, and a public servant. I am deeply sorry. I cannot change the decisions I made, nor can I undo the harm my behavior caused then and today.
Congressman, is it fair to accept that he is not the same person today as he was then, and does it matter?
I certainly understand that all of us evolve throughout life, but right now I'm taking cues from folks in Virginia. I'm certainly taking cues from my congressional colleagues and friends, Congressman Bobby Scott and Congressman Don McEacham.
Yeah, he has enjoyed a broad African-American support since he was elected. Do you see anyone coming to his defense?
Not at this point. Again, I'm taking cues from my congressional colleagues, Bobby Scott and Don McEacham, regarding this matter. I think they've served with him, they've worked with him, they know him better than I do. I can only go by pictures, I can only go by reports. And again, taking a picture in blackface, even with the Klansman hood on, I think is unacceptable and worthy of resignation.
So that's what I would like to ask you. He says that he does not know which person he is in that picture. Does it matter that he figures that out and that he owns it?
I don't think it matters whether you are in a Klansman uniform or whether you're in blackface. Both are equally offensive. I think given the history of racism in our country, given the history of the Ku Klux Klan, their attacks on African Americans, their attacks on Catholics, Jewish brothers and sisters, they've evolved, as it were, and so they're not as detectable in today's time, but their efforts and outreach are still the same and still felt. And let's not even talk about blackface and the destructive legacy of blackface and its contribution to the broken psychology in the African American minds throughout history.
All right, Congressman Carson, thank you so much. Do stay with us, if you would, please. We have some breaking news on Russia, and we'd love to get your thoughts on that as well. As a member, of course, of the Intelligence Committee, this morning we're learning that Russia is going to build new supersonic nuclear missile after the U.S. backed out of a Cold War missile. We're going to talk about that on the other side of the break. Congressman André Carson to talk about this. He's a Democrat from Indiana, a member of the Intelligence Committee, House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for sticking around and being patient. We appreciate it, just to make sure that our viewers were completely apprised of all the elements of this story. With that said, Sam was talking about implementing sanctions. Do you agree that that might be a way to go at this point?
I certainly do. I don't think that we should act unilaterally to stoke a new nuclear arms race. I do, however, think that we have to be very serious and deliberate. We need constraints in place, but that does not mean that America has to escalate in this process. What is clear is that we've really been too soft on Russia, given the grave violations that we've seen, particularly with their interference in our electoral process, and now with the controversy surrounding the Mueller investigations and the indictments that have been handed down. Russia is a clear and present threat. The president has been too soft on Vladimir Putin. He's been too soft on Russia. I think it's time for us to really think seriously about implementing sanctions and get to the root causes of it. Russia is still a threat. When we can recall 1987, I was 12, going on 13 that year, remembering when Mikhail Gorbachev and President Ronald Reagan signed that treaty. It's important that we cannot forget that now that we have Vladimir Putin, former KGB, he's still a threat, and he is in a race to be number one globally. We can't let that happen.
You know, the president would say that he has been tough on Russia, that he has implemented sanctions on them. And when we look at Russia, they've invaded Crimea, they've interfered in the elections. There are questions abound regarding Russia's willingness to even comply with the INF regulations, which now they're dismissing this morning. Is there any way you really think to encourage, to solidify Russia honoring that treaty?
I think we have to get tougher on Russia. I think we have to let Russia know that we mean business. I think that Russia has continually violated our airspace there. They've taunted us in many ways. Again, they've imposed themselves in our elections. They've inserted themselves in our elections. And so they're really testing us globally. It's almost as if they don't care, especially as it relates to Donald Trump. We need leadership that's going to be tough on Russia and will really let Russia know we don't need symbolic sanctioning. We need hard, concretized sanctions that will make them realize America's not playing.
So as a member of the Intelligence Committee, who do you want to talk to? What do you want to know?
Well, we're looking forward to speaking to Michael Cohen next week. I think Chairman Schiff is very capable. We have the cream of the crop, as it were, in terms of members on the committee. I think I'm excited about Democrats being in control. We're going to bring dignity back to this very prestigious committee. Those on the committee, even Republicans included, we take our jobs very seriously. As a former police officer, as someone who's worked in counterterrorism with the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, I understand the global threats that exist. And Russia, as I said in the beginning of the talk, is a threat and continues to be a threat. So these hearings will be revelatory, so stay tuned.
All right, Congressman André Carson, we appreciate you so much taking the time to be with us and to stay with us for a couple of blocks here. Thank you.
Thank you.